of these are actually my very favorite stories of all time. So I hope you guys enjoy what we have going on today. So, Cyrus is an awesome ruler. We remember he was kind and caring to his people. He let them keep their faith. He let them go keep their local customs, their local leaders, their languages. He didn't change things. Sometimes people had less taxes. And his son, Cambyses II, is the next ruler of the Persian Empire. Now, it's going to get a little complicated and crazy. Please feel free to say, wait, Mr. Kenny, I have a question, or I don't understand, okay? So, Cyrus the Great dies. Cambyses II is made king. And after his dad dies, he secretly kills his brother Bardaia to protect his reign. So here's something that often would happen throughout history. So we have, let's see, we have Jason. Jason, your daddy was king. So you are now the new king after your daddy passes away. Well, here's the thing, though. Sometimes when someone becomes king, their siblings say, I want to be ruler. And then it causes civil war. So, for example, you go and say, well, you're going to be king, and your dad said you're going to be king, but then what if Haley or Leah say, no, they should be the rulers? And then Shania starts following Haley, and Alex and Kirthana start following Leah, and so it's a big problem. Civil war happens. It's a disaster. So Cambyses doesn't want a civil war. So he secretly kills his brother Bardaia, so no one else can say that they are going to be the ruler. Cambyses II goes then to Egypt and conquers Egypt. Now, if you remember, when we talked about Egypt, we talked about a land of gold. Does anyone remember what that land of gold, what the name of the land of gold was that was south of Egypt that we spent a couple days talking about? Does anybody remember? What was that place? Yes, Cush, or as the Egyptians called it, Nubia, which literally meant land of gold. So Cambyses II, he wants the gold, he wants the glory. He sent an army of 40,000 soldiers to go conquer Cush. The humongous army of Cambyses is marching south through the desert, and a giant sandstorm is set to come and have completely buried all 40,000 of those soldiers. All 40,000. Now, this is something that Herodotus wrote, one of the earliest historians. He was Greek. He wrote about Cambyses' lost army. We're actually still looking for evidence of this today because it sounds wild to us that a sandstorm would be that large. But anyways, Cambyses II is in Egypt. His army was just lost. He never conquers Cush. And while he's in Egypt, his brother Bardaia takes the throne in Babylon, declaring himself king. Wait, what? Bardaia? Bardaia is supposed to be dead. This is what I'm talking about. We have crazy stories for our Persians here. Now, here is the thing. Cambyses secretly killed his brother. He didn't go advertise it on the news saying, hello, my name is Cambyses II and I killed my brother in cold blood so he couldn't have a civil war. No. He kills his brother, only tells his most trusted servants and bodyguards. So, one of the things, today, we know what our president looks like. We probably any of you could pick out Donald Trump like in a photograph. And before that, probably any of you could have picked out President Obama in a photograph. Because we have cameras, videos, we have, we see them on the news, we hear their voices. So we know what our leaders look like. We're very familiar with them. Even when I was a child, like much younger, I knew, who George Bush was. I knew who Bill Clinton was. I knew all of the leaders even when I was a kid. Back then, the best you could do to really know what your ruler looked like for people was if you saw him on a coin. Most people didn't even have coins or money. And let's face it, we see George Washington on a quarter. Do we have that kind of image? But we probably only really know what George Washington looks like from paintings that we've seen. So most people aren't going to pick this out. So when Bardaia says, I am the ruler, most people aren't going to know Bardaia. They're not going to know what he looks like. And so Cambyses knows Bardaia is dead because he killed him. So he says, well, this is obviously an imposter. But no one else knows that this is an imposter. Okay? Yeah, total sus. Nice. So, as the story goes, magus, which we get from the word magi, so like a magician, named Wamata is supposedly going and being the Bardaia imposter. So we have someone, a magician, pretending to be Bardaia and saying he is king of Babylon. And so Cambyses II does the only thing he knows to be right. He goes, hops on his horse, probably puts his sword out and says, onward, we must go to Babylon and stop this fake person from pretending to be my brother. But here's the thing. Cambyses II's sword somehow comes out of its sheath and somehow cuts Cambyses' leg. And this cut gets an infection, and Cambyses II dies. So we see Cambyses II, he didn't rule very long. He ruled for 8 years. And in his time, he conquers Egypt. He loses his army going to Cush. And supposedly, his brother was gone and now overthrew him. Now, I want us to be thinking, like, how realistic does this story sound so far? Like, what do you guys think? Is this believable? Evelyn gives a 6 out of 20. Riley says it's wrong. So this is a weird story. A brother killing his brother, which that unfortunately happens through history sometimes. But then he coincidentally dies on the way to go stop it. You probably shouldn't pretend to be someone else now. All right. So let's keep on going with our story. No, I definitely agree. Killing your own brother is not a good idea. Please, be nice to Alex and Cullen. So Darius is our next ruler. Now, Darius was Cambyses II's bodyguard. He was not related to Cyrus the Great. Now, Darius is who actually tells us the story, because Darius goes to Babylon and kills the fake Bardaia and takes the throne. So here's the thing, though. Sounds kind of suspicious. There's a fake Bardaia, but no one knows that he's a fake. He's one of the only people who knows Cambyses killed the real one. Cambyses II just conveniently, a warrior king, dies because his sword comes out of his sheath and cuts his leg and he gets an infection. Or could it maybe have been poison? But here's the thing, too. This is all written by Herodotus, a Greek. And Darius is going to be the guy who starts the Persian wars against the Greeks. So maybe Darius was the rightful ruler. And Herodotus is just trying to make think that Darius was shady. And one of the things is we will never know. But the story about Darius gets even crazier. So Darius kills the fake Bardaia. Supposedly, he's in league with the other bodyguards of Cambyses II. But now all of these guys together, they kill the fake Bardaia, the Magus Gautama, totally not the real Bardaia, after Cambyses, their leader, dies. And they say, well, who should be the next king? What are we going to do? And of course, it's got to be one of us, because we were Cambyses' most trusted inner circle. So they go and say, well, we need the gods to decide who will be our next ruler. So they say, all right, in the morning, whoever comes out to the square and all of our horses go and start cheering for, that will be the next ruler. So they're going to leave it up to the gods and have the horses, basically the gods control the horses so that they could decide the next ruler. Sounds totally legit, right? Well, Darius, can you control a horse? Are you going to, how do you guarantee yourself going to be the ruler there? So what he does is the Persians all rode boy horses. All right, they wanted the biggest, the strongest horses, so they were all boy horses. So what Darius does is he finds a girl horse, and he gives that girl horse a big hug, hugs all over, probably rubs his clothes all over that girl horse so that the girl horse's smell, the scent, is on Darius. So, of course, the first conspirator that killed the fake Bardaia comes out. None of the horses do anything, no neighing or anything. The second conspirator comes out, walks out, nothing happens. But when Darius comes out, all of those boy horses, all of those stags, they smell the mare's scent on it, and they go crazy. They're neighing, they're bucking, they're all, and then he's like, look, the gods want me to be the next king. So Darius goes and marries, I believe he marries his Cambyses' sister, the princess, Darius' daughter, so that he could be the legitimate king and all of this stuff. And so Darius becomes our next ruler. But I do want us to say, we have to also think about the source. And this is so important today, because today you can turn on one news channel and it will tell you one story one way, and you turn on another news channel and it'll tell you the same exact story a complete opposite way. And this is something throughout all of history where we need to think about bias. Is Herodotus telling us the truth about Darius, or does Herodotus, the Greek, want us to think Darius is a bad guy because Herodotus didn't like him? And so we need to go and always be cognizant of that. And the truth is, we are never going to know the absolute truth about the situation. But I will say, what Herodotus wrote, either Herodotus is trying to make Darius look bad, or he does not look good. Now, here's the thing, though. Darius is going to be a pretty good ruler for the Persians. He's going to create a new tax collecting system that is going to wind up being incredibly efficient. Once again, the Persians are typically going to have less taxes than their predecessors and treat their subjects kindly. He divides the empire up to govern it well. I do not know why I used all caps when I wrote satrapies, but for some reason I did. A satrapy is a fancy word for what we would call a state, or what Canada calls a province. So they divided their empire up into the little sections to make it easier to run, with someone called a satrap in charge. So that's like how we have a governor. So in Maryland, we have the United States of America, like into the Persian Empire. We have 50 states in the United States, like how the Persians have 23 satrapies, and each of our states has a governor. We have Governor Larry Hogan. And, for them, they would have, for each satrapy would be a satrap. Does that make sense? So he divides his empire up to organize it, to make it run better. He has built something called the Royal Road, which is going to be pretty incredible. It's a 1,200-mile long road that's going to allow unprecedented transportation and communication. Because we have to remember, this is, in the 500s BC. This is almost, this is 2,500 years ago. This is a long time. And he has a road system built so that communication can go through where, it takes like 2 weeks to travel the entire empire, which is incredible because it's so large. And using that railroad, he completes a postal system. So now you can send mail throughout the entire empire. This is something completely new. We take for granted the fact that you could put a stamp on an envelope and mail something to your grandma who lives across the country. Darius starts this kind of thing. Also, he creates something called the king's eyes and ears, and they're spies, making sure that Khan isn't saying anything bad about Darius. You know, making sure Adelina doesn't say, maybe Darius killed the real Bardaia, the real true king. Maybe he also killed Cambysis. So, going and creating a network of spies to listen in, to watch the people. That's not something too positive. Now, as we are going to find out, because as we get further along in our Persians and then with our Greeks, we're going to see the Greeks and the Persians are going to war. And we are going to have Darius be the person to start those wars. Under Darius, the Greeks in Asia Minor, so right across, so we have, you know, Greece. Darn, I don't have a map. So let me pull up the map because I can do that. All right, map of Greece and Asia Minor. So we have Greece over here. This is Asia Minor. Lots of Greeks lived over here. So right across the Aegean Sea towards Greece. And Darius is going to rule over these guys. I mean, Cyrus did too. And they are going to revolt with the help of the Greeks over in the main Greek mainland. It's called the Ionian Revolt. And the Athenians, who we're going to talk a lot about in this upcoming unit, are going to be the people who go and help them to do this revolt. And so one of the things that's going to be kind of interesting with Darius is before every time he had dinner, he had a servant whisper in the ear, remember the Athenians. You know, he's about to drink his milkshake. Remember the Athenians. You know, he's at the drive-thru at McDonald's, and then the servant goes in the ear. He's about to take a bite into his Big Mac. Remember the Athenians. And so he's going to be who we primarily think about with the Greco-Persian Wars. We're going to talk a lot about that later on. Anyways, that's going to be our notes from the day. We had our crazy story. Do we have